Let's come over to purpose now, okay? What's the purpose of registration? Like, can anyone imagine, if you're a government, right, and people are buying and selling cars in your country, why do you want them to have their cars registered? Yeah.
So that in case anybody like steals it and uses it for robbery, they can trace it back to you and it's like, did someone steal your car?
Yeah, absolutely. So all these kinds of things that relate to, okay, there was a hit and run. Someone saw the license plate for that car. How are they going to work out who's liable? Well, it's registered to a name, right? So really, this is about good record keeping. That's what you're paying for. That record keeping, real people in the government have to actually do that. So we have to pay for their salaries, right? That's one thing. But also, to get a pink slip, right, you actually have to, or your dealership before they give you the car, you actually have to get your car checked to make sure that it's roadworthy, right? What kinds of things in a car might not be roadworthy? Any examples?
The wheel.
Okay, so the wheels, as you drive and you go around and you take corners, that kind of thing, the tires gradually wear off, right? So eventually at some point, someone will look at those wheels and say, hey, those are dangerous. We can't let you keep driving around on those. I'm not going to give you your registration, okay? Anyone else want to suggest anything?
Legal modification.
Okay, so people might say, put in a huge engine, right? Or have 5 exhaust pipes out the end or something ridiculous like that. So they're not going to register it if the car's actually breaking laws, okay? Anyone else suggest? Yeah, okay. So they're going to check, do all the indicators work? Do all the brake lights work? A little while ago, don't laugh at my actually, maybe I've got it here. Yeah, I do. Oh, no, you can't see the back of the car. Okay, never mind. So on the back of a car, right? So here's the back of a car, right? And I told you not to laugh, right? The brake lights, right? They're the red ones here and here. Now, by law, and this only came in like 15 or 20 years ago, which I know seems like a long time for you guys, but that's quite recent in like automotive history. There has to be this third light here, right? And so in order for cars to drive on the road, they have to have all three, and all three have to be functioning. So at a certain point in time, people had to say, and this was generally mechanics, they'd have to look at every aspect of the car, go through like 100 different points and say, okay, this car is roadworthy, I'll give it a thumbs up. Okay, so therefore, we're talking about record keeping, just that clerical stuff, but also safety checks, right? They cost money, and so you have to pay for that. Now, because of all of that, registration, it generally lasts about a year. Registration is transferable, okay? So I might buy a car, brand new, and I've got 12 months on there, and then the following week, I see some hot new thing driving past, and I'm like, actually, think I'd like to get that instead. Now, I can sell my car, which will then have 51 weeks of rego left on it, and whoever buys it off me, maybe one of you, gets those 51 weeks because the car is still roadworthy, right? It's still been checked out. So this is what we call a transferable right here. And if you buy a second-hand car, part of the value of the car, a small amount, but still part of it, is, well, how much rego is still left on this, okay? Because it's like one less thing I have to worry about if I'm buying a second-hand car. Okay, then we come to stamp duty. Now, stamp duty, like I said, is for actually putting a stamp on your paperwork. It's about this transferable business here, right? So a transfer of ownership happens whenever a car is purchased, right? Transfer of ownership. This, because it's about the actual transfer, you can't transfer it because every time you buy or sell the car, you have to do this all over again, right? So the stamp duty is generally speaking a percentage. I think at the moment, most vehicles will be 3%. And it depends on a couple of things. Maybe you want to put some extra space down the bottom here. What does the stamp duty depend on? When you have a think about how much a car is worth, you think about a percentage of that, and the more you sell it for, the more stamp duty you're going to have to pay. One of the other secondary reasons why governments do this is it stops people constantly shifting around assets or money in order to give it to someone who will pay less tax, okay? Because people try and evade tax like that. Because every time you move the car, you have to pay this extra bit. One thing I forgot. Let's come back to registration, because registration also, the amount that you pay on it will also change depending on a few different factors, okay? So the first thing is the category of car that it is, the category. So for example, a motorbike versus a normal 4-seat sedan versus a ute versus a 13-seat minibus, etc. All of these categories of vehicles, they attract a different registration fee. And secondly, in terms of registration, you also need to declare what kind of thing you're going to be using that vehicle for, right? Is this a business vehicle? Like, are you actually making money with this? If so, your registration will be more expensive, okay? Right, excellent. How are we going so far? Last one, insurers. There are two main kinds of insurance that I'm going to talk about. Does anyone know what any of them are?
Life insurance.
Oh, okay, hold on. So there's life insurance, there's income insurance, there's property insurance. All of those are relevant. You might get interested in them, but none of them have to do with vehicles. Okay, so let's just think about the cars. Lauren, do you want to suggest one?
Isn't there like third-party insurance?
Okay, so the first one I'm going to tell you about is called, it's got a big name, Compulsory Third-Party Insurance. Because of its name, it's often called Ctp Insurance. Just like with registration, this also has a colloquial name. Does anyone know what it is? It's called a green slip. You got a pink slip, that's for the registration of the car, and then you got a green slip, that's this amount of insurance that you have to pay. You can't drive, it's illegal to drive your car without compulsory third party. That's why it's called compulsory. Now, just looking at the name, can anyone guess what it means? It's for other people who are injured or, heaven forbid, killed during the course of an accident, okay? So what this is compensation for injury or death. Now, importantly, it's not injury or death that you incur, it's injury or death that you cause because you're in an accident, okay? So therefore, that's why it's called third parties. It's for someone else. Right, we're almost there. I told you there were 6 things that you'd be liable to pay. The 5 that we've just written, you need all of those. They're all compulsory, but this last one is optional. Hooray! So I'm going to put this one as optional. However, when I say optional, pretty much everyone buys this. So compulsory third party, it's very bare bones. You can see it doesn't cover very much. For example, if your car gets totaled or someone else's car gets totaled, it doesn't cover any of that cost. So you would have to pay that out of your pocket if an accident like that happened. Okay. If you want more cover, like something that covers more different kinds of damage or problems or accidents that might occur, we call this comprehensive insurance. That's exactly right. So comprehensive as it covers more things. Now, when we have a look at the different kinds of insurance that are included, and there are lots of different kinds underneath comprehensive, basically the more you pay on a weekly, monthly basis, the more cover that you get. Okay, so you remember we said compensation for injury or death of third parties. You can also cover property damage. So for example, you accidentally swerve off the road and you run into someone's house and you ruin their front door or their front window or whatever. Okay, so that costs a lot of money to repair and you're at fault. If you get a certain amount of comprehensive insurance, it'll cover that kind of property damage. It'll also cover theft. Sorry, that's not a bracket. So if your car gets stolen, it'll cover that. And it'll also cover your own injury. So remember I said to you, this one up here, this compulsory third party, it's for other people who get injured, right? So comprehensive insurance will cover injury or death that is for you or people in your car, okay? Yeah, kinda. Life insurance is a little bit different, and you could just get injured in a parachuting accident or walking on the street or whatever. Has nothing to do necessarily with vehicles. Okay. Okay. Now you remember I said to you registration and stamp duty, they're kind of dependent on different things. Compulsory third party and comprehensive insurance, they also are dependent on different things. I'll talk mainly about CTP. Does anyone know what kinds of factors will affect how much you have to pay on compulsory third party? Anyone? Yeah, Laura.
Would it be like how long you've been driving for and like the car you drive?
Yep, very good. So things like, say, age, right? Things like whether you are male or female, things like the type of car that you drive, because if you're driving like, this sweet hot rod with a really low body, you're probably more likely to get in accidents, not less likely. So all these kinds of factors are involved. Driver history is also really important. Driver history. Does anyone know what it's called? It has a special name. If you've never had an accident that you have, actually required a payout on insurance for. Does anyone know what it's called? Most of your parents probably have it. Something called a no-claim bonus. Don't know if you've ever heard that phrase before. if you have driven well and you've never actually had to make a claim on insurance to say, hey, insurance company, I had an accident. Can you pay me out for this? You know, all my premiums, they're going towards you paying me back for something. If you've never done that, they're like, hey, you must be a safe driver. So they gave you like this little incentive to be safe in that way, and you have to pay less. Okay. All right, so there you go. There's an overview. Lots of little costs. Remember I said that asterisk, right? Like the asterisk that is there, that's all of this stuff down here. It's all included, okay?